treatment, supply, storage, and transmission costs for water and wastewater.
That's kind of my question, but we're going to have add additional pump trucks and such like that, and some of those are in excess of $100,000. So
yeah, those would typically be through user rates because they have smaller lives. Usually, the vehicles and equipment are not included in the fee calculations because of you have shorter service lives.
Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along those lines, we are actively putting in water and wastewater piping right now. Would this impact the people that are connecting at this moment, or is this just new construction only?
If you adopt these fees, any time that there is a building permit issued, and that's when the fees are paid, that's when they would pay.
Okay,
when
so
the building permit is
so
issued.
you've got a home there, and you've got a septic, and you've got a well, and you're wanting to hook to our system. You would not pay an impact fee, but your neighbor building the house right beside you would pay that impact fee.
No, people connecting to the system would pay the impact fee.
So you would pay it.
Yes. If you are connecting to the system, and usually utilities will have a mandatory connection policy that says that if a transmission main or some main is within a certain amount, a certain distance, you have to connect to the system. But yes, you would pay into the capacity of that system.
Well, in theory, that sounds really good, and I think state policy or law makes that happen, but it doesn't happen that way. And we're out running pipes right now, promising people to take their well and septic and bring it into our system. And now we're going to go out there and say it's going to cost you $8,000 or whatever that case may be. Unless I'm missing something here.
Commissioner, I think that the difference would be the program that we have going is for existing residents who are on a septic system and that we're trying to encourage to come off of that septic system. They wouldn't be assessed an impact fee because they're a current resident. Residents. We're not building a new structure. We're taking the existing structure off and changing the venue by which they're disposing of waste.
Did I hear you say hookup and not new construction, right?
Yes, if there's yes, typically, unless you have a legal way of saying that, that you have they don't have to pay an impact fee, that would be then yes, they would normally pay an impact fee to buy into the capacity of the system.
Mr. Suggs.
Yes, ma'am. Just for a little more clarity, if I can, the county currently has a connection fee in place. Impact fee, connection fee, whatever, but there's currently a connection fee in place for those folks that we've been running the lines and the backbone to. The board at one point, though, waived those connection fees because we were trying to get those services online, get the septics and all that off the river, so to speak. But there is a connection fee already in place for those folks.
I guess what Mr. Harvey's asking is, are we going to force those people, which you said is if it's within a certain distance of that line, to pay that impact fee and abandon their well and septic tank? Are they compelled to do that if we in it?
And I'll ask the legal. Do you know if the county has a mandatory connection policy?
We do not.
I don't believe we do. It's a state law, but I don't think that the county has gone down that road. That will be a discussion if they would like to look at that later. But like I said previously, those folks that were putting the infrastructure in place through grants and all that, we've waived those connection fees at this point to try to encourage them to go ahead and tie into the system.
And those connection fees are, I know we've already established that at last year at the budget cycle, but I can't remember what they are. Do you have that, or can you find that? And to our audio, I'm getting a text saying that the people who are watching this cannot hear us. So I'm not sure if you can do something with that for the IT department, please.
Not me this time.
existing lot of record. They were getting rid of their septic tank on a current lot, is what you guys waived last year in your fee schedule, so that somebody that had a septic system that was failing or whatever, they could tie into the system at no additional cost. You guys did waive that portion of it last year, but they wanted to make sure that it captured new construction coming in, because otherwise it's like giving somebody a new septic system, right? So that was a caveat that you guys had put on there. That's where that fee was waived. It's the same fee that he's approached now as what's currently in our fee schedule, is $8,000 a hookup, which is what is currently in our fee schedule now. We have waived it for the water management district when doing the septic to sewer conversions. By the agreement, we're not allowed to charge them that.
Because we got grant funding.
That's correct. And I mean, that's part of the exclusion of the grant. They won't allow us to charge the resident impact fee or a connection fee. So we're saying this same thing. So that's where that originated from, was just trying to get all those septics off, where it had to be waived from the water management district. But it is in the state statute, or the DEP says if there's sewer in front of your home, you have to connect. So the way they've been enforcing that is if a resident's sewer system has failed at their home, they won't issue them a new permit to put a new septic system in front of their home. They'd have to join into our system once it's established and in front of their residents. But that's what it says, in front of the residents.
I believe that's also the same way the city of Palatka does it.
So if there's
Okay.
an existing functioning sewer and septic, then they're gonna be allowed to continue until such time it fails, and then they will be. they won't be
That's
given-
correct.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
okay.
But the rules, you're supposed to give them 365 days when it
Thank
comes in
you.
front to do it, but nobody's enforced it.
Sure, sure.
Commissioner Newbold?
So if initially these impact fees are set and accepted, what is the process for changing that fee, either reducing it or making it greater when that's necessary based on additional growth?
Well, the greater, I think, would need to be, you would want to have support you'd want to have a study support it, just to make sure that it's defensible. But as far as any user rates or impact fees, I always tell the commissioners are always in charge. You can always choose to lower these. You just can't you can't increase them without a public hearing.
Without a public hearing, a new impact fee study, and within 4 years, correct? Is there a 4-year, something, what's a 4-year
Not for
timeline?
water,
Can't go over 50%
not for
in
water
4
and
years.
wastewater. Those requirements aren't applicable to water and wastewater fees, and we've gotten a lot of legal opinions, because there's a part in the Florida impact fee that says, this section does not apply to water and sewer connection fees. And by connection fees, we've gotten lots of legal opinions that actually refers to impact fees. So
Okay.
you can, the water and sewer impact fees can be increased or decreased as needed. You can decrease it at any point, but any increases you would want to build some sort of support for it.
And do I understand correctly that there are limits to which you can raise it at any given time?
Well, for just about every impact fee except for water and wastewater, because there is a section
Okay,
in
except for
in that
wastewater.
statute that says this doesn't apply to water and sewer
Okay.
connection fees.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Okay, are there any other questions for the presenter? All right,
I really don't. Not related to water sewer.
okay, that's fine. We've still got another presentation. I think you're done, you're good?
Okay.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Nee Camp with Benish.
Good afternoon.
As Brian said, you saw this presentation in detail in April, so this is a quick summary of it. Again, just in terms of background, the county is continuing to experience growth, so that's putting pressure on the infrastructure. And your impact fees were placed under moratorium in 2006. So this, in addition to utilities, we are reviewing the 5 service areas. By definition, impact fees are one-time capital charge to new development. They cover the cost of new capital facilities. They cannot be used for maintenance or renovation, but they do free up general tax dollars, so they indirectly help those programs as well. They help implement capital improvement plans, and their main purpose is to maintain the level of service. They calculate the cost of growth, and they are most needed when there are high growth levels and limited alternative funding. Is that better? Oh, a lot better. So in Florida, impact fees were governed by case law since 1980s. So it basically, the key requirements are that they need to demonstrate that fees are proportionate to the need created by new development, and the fee payers receives the benefit. So it's achieved through benefit districts as needed, and also a list of capacity addition projects, either in your capital improvement plan or in terms of a master plan, but just to show that what will be built with these fees once collected. In 2006, we had the Impact Fee Act passed. Since then, it had several changes. Some of its key requirements are that the fees be based on most recent and localized data. There's a minimum of 90-day notice requirement once they are increased or adopted. If there's any challenge, now the government has the burden of proof that to show that their fees are correct. And this is the limit you were referring to. In 2021, we had House Bill 337 passed, and it placed limits on fee increases. So this applies to existing fees, so it doesn't apply to you currently.
Okay.
But once you adopt your fees, it will apply. So basically, it requires phasing of increases, and it limits the increase to 50%, and also fees cannot be increased more than once every 4 years. There's an exception clause that says if the community demonstrates extraordinary circumstances, those are discussed at 2 public workshops, and the increase is approved by 2/3 of the governing body, then increase can be more than 50%, and phasing doesn't have to be according to this schedule, and the fees can be increased more frequently. Now, we have one bill that's out there that's unrolled. It's not signed yet, but if it is signed, it becomes effective October 1st. It makes the use of this extraordinary circumstances clause a lot harder, and it requires unanimous vote of the governing body. So if approved, if signed, the bill itself becomes effective in October. That section becomes effective in January. And then last year we had House Bill 479 passed. In cases when, in a city, when both the city and the county collect for transportation impact fees, it requires that they enter into an interlocal agreement, and basically to show that there's really no double charging. And it also requires studies to be completed and adopted in 12 months, and also they need to use data available within the past 4 years. As far as the uses of revenues, again, they are for capital capacity addition. They cannot be used for maintenance, replacement, renovation. So examples may include, obviously, under transportation, new roads, lane additions, intersection improvements, dirt to pave on collectors and above, right-of-way purchase, roundabouts, anything that improves the speed of travel. Basically, transportation level of service is measured in terms of speed of travel. So we are adding capacity if we are funding an improvement that improves that speed of travel, reduces the congestion. In the case of fire rescue, that could be new stations, expansion of existing stations, land, new additional vehicles and capital equipment, not replacement, but additional. Law enforcement, your law enforcement includes only the vehicles, so it would be the new additional vehicles and capital equipment. In the case of government buildings, again, new buildings, expansion of existing buildings, land. Parks and recreation examples would include, again, parkland, building of recreational facilities. The study is using what we call a consumption-based methodology, which charges new growth for the value of the infrastructure that it's consuming, and it guarantees that we are not charging new development for existing deficiencies. And the basic formula looks at cost to add capacity, that's the value of your inventory, to the extent that taxes and other revenue sources are being used, a portion will come from future development. So that amount is subtracted, so we are not charging them twice. And that net cost is multiplied by demand, which is measured in terms of travel for transportation and population for other fees. So again, just to kind of show you a summary, these are example land uses, and this chart excludes water and wastewater, so you can kind of see single family is about 7,700, and the larger portions are roads and government buildings. This was in response to a question, and we can talk more about it during Q&A, but we were asked to potentially develop an example of a tiered single family. So typically, single family residential is charged per dwelling unit, and we can have size categories that differentiate, basically smaller homes, lesser impact. It's, as far as I know, I never seen a schedule where it's exactly per square foot. It's just because it's hard to justify by increasing 1 square foot, there's a bigger benefit. And then this chart shows all fees, including water and wastewater. So that'd be about almost 16,000. And again, the larger ones, transportation, wastewater, followed by water. Again, the study addressed the 5 service areas in addition to utilities. In each one of them, again, we documented the inventory, reviewed the service area, level of service, estimated the value of that inventory, accounted for any alternative funding that's being contributed to the same type of projects, calculated the demand and the fee. And I just have a few slides just showing the results, or I can even stop here and go to the summary. But in the case of fire rescue, single family home would be about $920. And in these comparison charts, we wanted to include the study date so you have a sense how old some of the studies are, and then also the assessed portion, which is the policy option of reducing the fee. So this group of counties charge anywhere from $230 to about $1,260. And then a couple more, these are $670 to $780 for single family. Law enforcement, again, yours is vehicles only, so these 2 counties also have vehicles only. That's why they are included here, even though they are not necessarily surrounding counties. But for single family, this fee is calculated at $150 per home, and these counties range from $155 to $183. Government buildings, again, in your case, government buildings include general government buildings, law enforcement, and jail. So we try to make that comparison. The single family home amounts to about $1,418, and this set of jurisdictions are charging anywhere from $610 to about $1,674, and these are from $500 to about $1,900. Parks and Recreation, yours is about $440. This group is ranging from $312 to about $2,500.
Can I ask a quick question on Parks and Rec? I see it's assessed on all the residential, but there's no capture for lodging or recreation. Why only for that residential section?
That's typically the, I guess, best nexus, the residential uses. When we get into non-residential, it's hard to say, you know, if you build an office, there's going to be a higher demand on park system. We just don't have enough data. If we had the usage data or something, because their impact will be lesser than residential. Residential, obviously.
Yep.
Some jurisdictions include hotel, motel, so that could be added. It's not, it's lesser, like maybe 1/3 includes it, 2/3 doesn't include it. So that's one land use that can be added if interested, but.
Okay. I was just trying to logically think that, you know, some people that come and stay in our county will do that for the, you know, for the recreational activity, for the outdoor amenities that we have, the boat ramps and those types of things. That just seemed semi-logical to capture those folks. And I get, hospitals and nursing homes, and probably not going to be a lot of use from that impact. Anyway, just a thought. Thank you.
I have a question while you're on this slide. So why the difference between mobile home, 1,300 square feet, and multifamily? Why the difference in cost? Because I see Alachua County has 543 for both multifamily and mobile home. Charlotte County is 246 and 249, only $3 difference. So I don't understand why we would charge a mobile home higher.
That's based on the persons per housing unit in your county. So basically, we have data from census showing by type of home how many people per housing unit. In the case of Alachua County, it may have been the case that they have a combined residential and just by tiered.
I gotcha.
So that's why it's exactly the same. St. Johns County is the same thing. It's all combined by tiered. But when Flagler County has separate, so there you see a similar, it's closer to single family, how many people per home. And this mobile home is all mobile homes on lot or in a park, so it's not just home parks.
Yeah, okay.
And then transportation, the single family calculated fee is about almost $5,000. And this, I have a few slides. Clay County has a tier, multiple schedules ranging from $800 to $7,300. And then these counties range anywhere from $1,600 to about almost $11,000. And then we did also review impact fee benefit districts and developed a suggestion, basically 2-district option. Reviewing any natural barriers, developable area size, travel patterns, development patterns, and looking at where the improvements are and facilities are. And that's needed only for transportation and parks. All the other ones are county-wide service area. So like government buildings, everybody comes to court, everybody goes to general. Fire, they travel with their trucks. Same thing with law. So this is again.
Let me get a transportation question again real quick. And maybe you hit it and I just missed it. I see in this, a mobile home under transportation has about a $1,700 fee, whereas a single-family detached home it would be almost $5,000. Why such a large discrepancy between?
So in the case of transportation, mobile home on lot is charged same as single family. We have trip data for mobile home parks, just the parks separately. Okay. We don't have persons per housing unit data. So the fees, in the case of transportation, when we show mobile home, it's only the mobile home park.
Okay, so that
So
lower rate is only in a park setting.
Yeah, if it's on a single lot, then it would be charged same as single family.
Okay, thank you.
So that makes me think of something. When you have land where developers put in mobile homes and the people own the mobile homes, but the developer owns the land and the trailer or the mobile home is real property, they wouldn't have to pay an impact fee?
It's whoever is pulling the building permit would have to pay the impact fee.
Okay.
To put that mobile home, yeah.
Okay. So it would fall under the mobile home parks in this situation where because they don't own the land?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So each individual lot will have an impact fee?
If you're in a mobile home park, it's usually the park itself, when in the initial development, pays the fee.
So it's one impact fee for the entire lot,
But
for the
I
entire
mean,
park?
yes, but it's per dwelling unit. So it's if they have 100 sites in that park, they'd be 100 times 4,000 or whatever.
And so that example I used was that one coming in East Palatka where the individual people will own the mobile homes.
Yeah, that was my question, if we were gonna charge them $4,000 a piece or $4,000 for the
So
park.
again, it's at the building permit or at the CO, depending on, the earliest we are allowed to collect is at the building permit. So whoever is pulling the permit would pay for it, and then they can pass it on or not.
And that's what I was hoping, that it would be per dwelling unit and we could charge them the same amount as a single-family residence.
Yes, it's per dwelling unit.
Okay.
So that's just the summary. Again, you saw these. Oh, and then in terms of the permitting, we did a range. You had, reviewing your permitting past couple years, past 4 or 5 years, and then estimated potential revenues. So it would range anywhere from 1.7 million for all of these fees combined to about 6.3 million a year, depending on the permitting activity. And I think with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, we'll start with Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to pass out something in just a moment, but this morning, one of our citizens asked us if we could put money up from the impact fees for incentives for businesses, and would that be allowed?
So, impact fees are just for capital expansion. If they meant, can we reduce the fees for some businesses? Is that what they were looking for?
Let's say you wanted to bring your business to Putnam County and you needed incentive to get here.
Mm-hmm.
Could we use that money for incentives?
You cannot use impact fee revenues for incentives, but if you are trying to give that business an incentive, you can waive you can pay the impact fee for them through maybe economic development dollars, or you may have a fund for it. So the impact fee account is whole. The idea is those who pay the fee should receive the benefit. So we can't pick and choose and reduce, unless we reduce everybody equally. But there are counties who buy down the fees for certain type of developments because they really want to encourage them. Like St. Johns County was buying down non-residential fees, impact fees, with their sales tax. So they were basically putting whatever incentive they gave to that out-of-town developer from the sales tax back into the impact fee account, the fund. So those who pay the full fees still receive the facilities that they paid for.
All right, so let me clean this up real quick. So let's just say we took 100,000, make the numbers easy to understand. 100,000 of sales tax money, and we could buy down $100,000 worth of impact fees. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
To incentivize?
Yes.
Okay, so, all right.
But the monies have to come from some other revenue generation other than the impact fees.
Yes.
Now, in your presentation, under your transportation, dirt to pave would be allowed, but only on collector roads, correct?
Right. So the immediate, basically it needs to provide benefit to a larger radius. It cannot be just immediate neighborhood, only the homes there are benefiting. So it could be even neighborhood collectors, minor collectors, major collectors, but it's just connecting one neighborhood to another, that neighborhood to an activity center. So it just needs to provide a bigger benefit than just the immediate neighborhood.
Can you bond impact fees?
Yes, impact fees don't get you a good rate, so they are usually the secondary pledge, but you can pay for debt service if they were if the bond proceeds were used for capacity projects.
Okay.
So the numbers that you're providing with us, you guys are providing with us, those are suggested values for an impact fee for this county based on your studies.
Mm-hmm.
And as a commission as a whole, we are able to tailor those numbers to what we feel might be more effective to our county. So we may not want to charge this here, but we may want to get these dollars here, or structure them to better suit economic development at a different rate. Do we have to abide by your? No.
No, we don't have that kind of power.
Okay.
These are
Just wanted to clarify.
technically defensible maximum rates,
Mhm.
right? These schedules, and it also shows the proportionality between the land uses. So the commission could adopt, for example, government buildings at 70% across the board for all land uses. Can adopt transportation at 100%, or so you can switch the adoption percentages as long as they are less than 100%.
So what you provided us with is a legally defensible
Right, but
maximum that we can structure based on that if we had to take it to court. Okay.
And you need to be sure to treat all land uses equal within the one service area,
Correct.
or buy down with another revenue.
So residential would fall into one silo, commercial would fall into another silo, and we could structure it based on that, how we saw fit.
So within a service area, residential and commercial all should be treated the same. So for example, parks, or I mean, lawn for, let me pick a government buildings. You may say, I'm gonna adopt a 50%, so both the residentials get 50% discount and non-residential. We can't pick and choose unless we are backfilling with another revenue source, and there's a public benefit for doing that.
And I think that's what's going to be important to remember, is if we choose to lower, then we got to come up with those revenues from another source.
Yeah,
I
my
mean,
question
if-
was,
Madam
could we
Chair.
lower, say if we wanted to focus on commercial development, could we lower that to make it more appealing for commercial development within that silo?
Okay, give me just a second. Commissioner Harvey, I know you have the floor.
Yeah, would you pass these down
Yes.
to everybody? These are some questions that I asked. I sent an email, and I can only share them in a public meeting. And the red question, the red responses are from the consultant. But let me go to my question, my last question, basically. It says, hypothetically, do we have to adopt impact fees across each line item? So all the ones that you're promoting here, fire rescue, law enforcement, government buildings, parks and recs, and transportation, those are the ones. Do we have to adopt every one of those?
No.
We don't, okay. And then, what about churches and nonprofits? I mean,
They are charged, they have impact, they affect facilities. They use roads to get to church, and they may have an incident where fire rescue has to go. Yeah, the legal attorneys do not recommend reducing, waiving fees with, again, you can say, you can establish public purpose and say, we will buy down their fees.
well, I
But
think, let me just, where the world I live in, different than the world you live in. And it is, there's no doubt. You sit behind the desk and you do the numbers, and I get that, but I'm elected by the people. So what they're thinking is impact fees, and I had this happen over the weekend, is I can't wait for impact fees to come in. Law enforcement's gonna get more deputies on the street. Doesn't work that way. Law enforcement has so many, please forgive me, not so many. Law enforcement has been taken care of so well in this county that their impact fee is low. And you tell that to the average person there at the American Legion, and they go, there's no way. I want more deputies on the street. Well, impact fees are not going to do that. And that's the key that people don't realize here. Yes, we might buy a car, but according to some of these numbers, it might buy one car a year. You know, it might outfit one deputy, that's it, but it's not gonna pay salary. And I think that's what the perception is. Now, I'm all for development, paying for development, don't get me wrong, but it's not what people think it is. And that's the reality. And trying to tell that story is very difficult to tell. It really is.
Yeah, the law enforcement and actually fire rescue too, they are very operationally heavy service areas. It's, you know, in some jurisdictions like what it costs to build a fire station is what they need operationally every year to staff that station. So those two, I mean, impact fees help a little bit, but their main needs are usually operational.
So if you've got counties out there that are buying down impact fees for commercial businesses to incentivize them to come to your county, why don't you just not charge impact fees on commercial businesses? Or why don't you deduct that to a very small rate where there is no more incentivizing, you're just giving them a good rate to come?
It's because of the legal requirements and case law. So it requires that everything, the fees be proportional, those who have the impact pay for it. So we can't, just from a legal perspective, we just have to show you what you are, you know, what it says, and then you are the board, so you can decide how much risk you want to take.
But Commissioner, if I may, on your,
Yeah.
on the discussion about churches, I want to make sure I understand, if there's an existing building,
Mm-hmm.
then that building, if they're tearing it down and redoing it, they would not pay an impact fee, correct?
Correct.
And if they're expanding their, let's say they're going from a 2,000 square foot building to a 3,000 square foot building, would they pay for the difference in the square footage?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And if they are changing use, again, they pay the difference. They always get credit for the existing structure there.
Okay, okay. So
But if you-
that was one of my questions.
But if
So-
you wanted to build a new 10,000 square foot church, you're going to pay an impact for that.
If it's brand new, yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
Because they're gonna have an impact, they're gonna have residents coming in. All right, where are we at? I'm
I
sorry.
think I'm done right now, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right,
Yeah, that's, my whole thing was just trying to find a way to make it more appealing for commercial investment that, that's actually gonna pay for its own versus focusing on residential development.
I do
That we are gonna have to have
Okay.
some other way of funding it. Cause
Yeah,
I
you-
believe it was like $1, $1.50, $1.75 is what the load that the county will bear for residential development versus a commercial development that actually pays money and puts money into the coffers to help support the rest of the community.
Commissioner Alexander, you're gonna have to start speaking up. I can't hear you and I'm two people down.
I gotta get some water.
Okay, sorry. All right, Commissioner Harvey, you had one more question?
Well, I think what Commissioner Alexander was picking up, we had some presenters earlier this morning that basically gave some dollar amounts. And I think with Mr. Woodward over here, that basically residential is never going to pay for residential, okay? But commercial doesn't drain government as much as, is not as taxing on government as residential is, okay? So I think if you're looking at trying to justify, do we want to slow the growth down in residential that we know that's coming, okay, because it is coming, and we want to keep some rural characteristic, then maybe residential impact fees are good. If we're on the side of the fence that we want more commercial growth, then maybe we, since it's not so much of a drain, maybe that we reduce that amount or whatever that amount is. I don't know, but it seemed to be very, residential was up here, commercial was down here. And that, from what the presenter said this morning.
Again, you can absolutely buy down the fees. So if you feel like that, and again, just like nearby, St. Johns County was buying 40% of the fees for all non-residential with sales tax. And if they are generating that much tax revenue, you can use some of that to buy down their impact. It just, impact fees are not taxes, so they are based on the impact of each development. And again, by law, those who paid their full share and didn't have the same benefit of discounts need to receive the facilities they paid for. So if we are reducing the revenues from one sense, that we are not going to be able to build the same facilities with that fund. So, but you are able to buy it down as a policy because you feel this is a good contribution to the community and something the community needs.
All right, so let me follow up with this, okay? Does your firm help us in identifying if we were to say we want to incentivize this, we don't want to charge that? Because right now, our sales tax, we use it for parks and rec, we use it for dirt to pave, we use it for wastewater and water expansion or debt of that sort. Does your firm help us walk that through and say, here's some of the monies that you'll have available if you do this, this, and this, and you pass impact fees for that?
We can help you. Again, anytime you give somebody a discount, you have a revenue loss, obviously, no matter from what fund. So, like, sometimes what we look at, when we give credit in the formula, you know how we talked about, to the extent you are using some taxes, that kind of tells us, on average, how much the county allocating from other sources for, say, transportation or whatever. So that amount can buy down the fees. But of course, anytime you reduce something, you can
gotta make up for it somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, we can definitely put some scenarios together, I guess, if that's what,
Now, I got to get my head wrapped around. Impact fees are collected, say, in East Palatka, okay? Because that's where our wastewater and water is. And what if we build out that facility and can no longer expand that facility? How do we justify impact fees? Okay, I'm sorry, that was not in your,
Well, invite Michael.
I'm sorry, that was in your, will.
Brian Mance from GovRates. I mean, the Florida statutes actually have a requirement that once you're at 75% capacity utilization, you need to start communicating to to the FDP your plans for expansion. So you got to let them know how you're going to address this capacity utilization. So you're not going to, you wouldn't get to 100%. If you got up to 100% capacity, you've had planning. You're pretty much built out, because you have to have planning discussions with FDP long before you get to any capacity utilization endpoint.
Also, if in many ordinances include language about if you don't use the impact fees for 6 to 7 years, you need to reimburse them.
Right.
So
Oh,
there's a
really?
time limit how long you can just keep it in a fund. So there's that also. It's sort of a safety net, you know, if something like this happens and you have nothing to use it on, then you have to reimburse them.
Reimbursed to the person who paid it,
Yes.
not to the masses, only to the
It
people.
actually goes by with land, so it could be the current landowner. I need to ask legal. Impact fee stayed with land, so you know, you may have a different owner and say they built something else there, they get the credit for the impact fee paid for that structure. So it could be that that address receives the
So
reimbursement.
basically what you're saying, the state of Florida says this cannot be a slush fund and sitting there collecting interest and not doing anything with it. Counties or municipalities, you gotta do something with this money if you're really gonna charge an impact, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So I have a question regarding accessory buildings. So accessory buildings such as sheds and barns, they would be exempt for existing landowners? So if somebody has a house already and they're
Yes.
adding a shed or a
It's-
barn and it's not a
It's
dwelling unit?
Right, they would be exempt. They are usually, the measure is area under air.
Say that again?
The area under air is
Oh, heated and cooled? Air,
Like
that's what you're saying?
like under air.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure. Okay, so,
You had a barn dominium. What if you had a?
well, then that's a unit of the, if you're having a barn dominium that's a living quarter, then that becomes a dwelling unit. So it has to, it's based on, if I'm understanding it correctly, dwelling unit is based on whether somebody could room there, live there, that type of thing.
Correct.
Right, okay. So sheds and barns and things that would be used for, we have a lot of ag land in our area, so people who are building a, you know, something to park their,
No.
yeah, no, all of that's exempt, okay. Or not charged a fee,
Mm-hmm.
okay. All right, are there any other questions from the board?
I do have one. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yeah, I have a question too.
So,
Larry gets done.
so in the queue right now, we have some big developers who are looking at Putnam County to come in. I don't believe they pulled any permits yet or anything like that. So would these be already in the hopper and they would not be charged impact fees? Or is impact fees at the time of permit or certificate of occupancy?
That's a policy decision. The earliest you can collect by law is the permit, but some jurisdictions wait until the CO. So you can do either. Once the fees are implemented, there's at least a 90-day period. Once the fees are adopted, there's a 90-day period before they become effective. So that also gives everybody some time. Some jurisdictions put that 90-day period to a longer time period. Otherwise, anybody who's going to pull the permit after the fees are in effect, they would pay.
Wouldn't you think certificate of occupancy, if you waited that long? Because if I'm building a house and there's overruns and now I'm really stressed out and all of a sudden at the end I want a CO and the impact fee's $15,000 and I'm going, I ain't got that kind of money. What,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
have
And
you ever experienced that before?
I haven't heard That, the development community typically supports the CO, but they are, because at that point, probably they are not paying. I think what is negative about that, it takes the government some time to build facilities, so the later you get the revenues, it takes that much longer to get
Sure.
the facilities, but the people show up sooner than that,
Mhm.
you know, so it may be better to collect that building permit. That seems to be more common, but you are also absolutely able to collect that CO or later than building permit.
So do you have to treat residential and commercial the same? Could you collect the commercial at CO and the residential at permit?
I probably need to check that with legal. We usually, I think you want to treat everybody the same as
Same.
much as you can.
Just curious, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that would lead into another caveat on that as far as a single-family home builder owner versus a large corporation, you know. It might be a struggle for them to come up with it up front until they secure a certain number of draws. So there's a lot of questions.
Well, that's why she's here, so what,
Mhm.
please, let's, and if you have them, please, let's get right now.
So we were talking about a net gain on the commercial and residential impact fees. So if we did, you know, hypothetically speaking, forego a certain number of the commercial, residential, or commercial impact fees, would those have to balance out, like a balance sheet over to the residential side, or can we forego some of that, or?
So if I understand the question correctly, if you are discounting the commercial, can you put that on the residential? Is that the question?
Do we have to, or can we make it a more appealing environment for commercial development by lowering the fees for the commercial side and not going with your recommendation?
Yeah, if you are lowering you are able to lower the commercial fees
Independently of the residential fees?
independently of the residential, as long as you are backfilling that delta with another revenue source. So if, for example, you charge 50% of the commercial fee, and that was $150,000, you need to take $150,000 from sales tax, put it in the impact fee fund.
And you have to do it with all commercial, not just certain commercial. That right? Is that what we're
But
talking
you
about?
could do certain, because some jurisdictions, for example, really want to encourage industrial.
Right?
So they only discount that land use.
Okay,
Some medical office, but it should have a public purpose. It shouldn't be one development within one category gets a discount, but second one doesn't. It should be, you know, we
Right,
really need this industry, so we are discounting anybody who comes, you know.
right. No, that was my question, but you said that we can set the
You can say-
impact fees at whatever we want to. So if we don't use the recommendation for you on a commercial side, we can set it wherever we want to. Why should we have to
You-
fill that?
Yeah, you can set it up at anything you want across the board of all land uses. You can say we are adopting it at 50%, so everybody will be charged half. But if you are wanting to residential to be charged, say, 100%, but commercial at 50, then you have to buy down, because you are not giving the same benefit to residential, and impact fees about their impact and proportionality and equity between land uses. It's not other community goals. So it's just pretty,
Yeah, to me, it kind of opens a box, though. Who's going to make the determination on which industries they feel are proficient or beneficial for the community, and we're going to buy down this fee for this development, but not that development?
so again, like if you have target industries, you know, like the county needs industrial, or county needs, I don't know, more offices. Anybody who comes under that category would get that discount, and the county would basically fill back that discount with another revenue source.
so if you pick industry, and that industry comes in, and they have 2 jobs, and another industry has 200 jobs, you're giving them both the same discount.
No, actually, you don't have to. You can put some layers on the employment categories.
Okay.
It cannot be the Mr. Smith's development gets $2 and the same exact development with, you know, Mr. John's doesn't get it. It just, but you can absolutely put limits saying, you know, industries that generate this much jobs will get a bigger discount, and this is how they need to show it. And if they don't generate it by X year, they have to pay back the impact fee. Yeah, you can definitely do that kind of tiering.
It sounds like a pretty complex algorithm.
It needs tracking. It does need staff time. It needs, you know, tracking, but
Yeah.
there are examples, so.
Sure. I'm just trying to avoid what appear to be preferential treatment for businesses that may be competing with existing businesses, or we have two very similar businesses coming in, one getting a different level of treatment than the other. So we would probably need to establish that very firm, very straightforward before we determine any of that.
Or we just don't go down that road.
That is
Commissioner
another.
Harvey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. So let's make this real simple. We got a business that wants to come in, we're gonna impose impact fees, we're gonna reduce them at 100 employees, if they employ 100 employees. And their impact would have been $20,000, but we're gonna reduce that to 10, okay, or nothing. I don't, pick a number, it doesn't matter. Do we put that money back in the fund from another source day
Yeah.
one, or do we wait? And is it based on projection, or is it based on reality?
Whenever they pull the building permit and they pay their portion of the fee, that whatever
So-
you then use, that's the time you would put the
Okay.
rest of it in.
All right, so we have what we call a development authority here, and some of us serve on that. We talked the other day, or I briefly mentioned doing some type of grant out of some funds that we have. Can we use a development authority to back fund that money?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So do we have to have that do you have to implement that program in the beginning, or is that something that we can change later?
You can change, anytime you are reducing, you can change later. There are only restrictions if you are, like if you adopt the fees at 50% and you want to increase 75%, that has to wait for 4 years. But anytime it's a decrease, you can adopt it, or you can implement it anytime.
Yeah, I mean, we got to remember why we're talking about impact fees and what the purpose of it is. And if the purpose is that it's growth paying for growth, whether it's industry or residents, well, they should, in my opinion, should be treated the same. If we then later on come back and we say we want to do some kind of incentive program, I think it's a separate discussion and I really just think it's separate. I appreciate the conversation, but I feel like that incentive program has to be separate. And if we're tying it back to how we're going to give somebody a grant from the development authority or whatever, I just feel like that has to happen at a different time. I think that we need to focus on, are we going forward with impact fees or are we not?
No, I agree. These are just questions that I have so that we
Yeah,
could
I know they're
bring
good
this out.
questions, don't get me wrong, I'm just like, I feel like that's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure that we don't miss something from the get-go that we should have addressed initially, and it's going to catch us to bite us, so
Yeah,
that's the purpose of it.
okay. Any more questions? There's a lot. Go ahead, keep asking.
I'm sorry, I do have a lot, but I'm gonna try to bring this home. So right now, let me ask you this, if it might be in your wheelhouse real quick. If we were to eat the elephant one bite at a time and go, you know what, we really need wastewater and water right now. Can we go ahead and do that one without doing all of them right now? And then while we're still deliberating, we go, yeah, we want this one and we want this one, and we move it. Can we take a little bite at a time, or do we have to try to shove the whole apple in our mouth?
Well, there's the,
1 year,
yeah, 1 year. Okay,
So- So you can do that in the sense that you can, this month you can do water, wastewater, next month something else. But also just remember that the fees need to be adopted within 1 year of the study.
Sure, I know that,
So we are sort of,
yeah.
So I'll
Yeah.
let you guys opine on that.
The time we re-engaged you to do it, we have to have those fees in place in 1 year. And that's what we've come up with.
Yeah, so as long as you don't miss, or that deadline too much,
Bless you.
then I think you can take some time. But it's gonna be within months. It's not gonna be 2 years later you adopt something else.
I get that,
Yeah.
yeah, I get that. But I think wastewater and water, I think most people can agree with that. I have some other ideas, but about the hookups, but because we're asking people to do it, but that's a whole nother, I'm not gonna fall on the sword for that one. I'm just saying that's,
Actually, probably water and wastewater is the only one you can adopt even 2 years later, right? Because they are not.
right, you
bound.
don't have the restrictions of the Florida Impact Fee Act. All the,
So
so you you know, water and sewer, you don't have all these
I
restrictions.
just don't want to send the wrong message. That's the key that I keep going back to is, you know, we're getting grants and we're getting grants to help take septics off the sewer. We're trying to get people to hook in. And I don't want to lose that message that that's important where people go, I'm not hooking up. Because we do have some people that go, I'm not hooking up. And you can say, well, the state law says that you have to, I ain't hooking up. I mean, and what do? Force them, take their home? I'm not.
Well, I think we established through earlier discussions that the people that are, you know, you got some grants to you know, to handle those hookups, and so
Right,
that
right.
the fees would not apply to those.
I get that. I do. Yeah. But they're not going to hear that, so I understand. I know.
I mean, it's all about communication.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
And if they were, I mean, so let's get that, let's make sure we understand. If we're gonna hook up today and there's grants available, then they would get that. We've already established that. If they're hooking up in the future because they don't wanna hook up now, and it's 3 or 4 years down the road and we have impact fees in place, then they would either be paying the impact fee or the connection fee, and they're very similar in price. So it wouldn't matter. If we didn't have impact fees, we would still have the connection fees for those residents. Mr. Grimes, can you help with this?
Absolutely, and the data that he brought back is almost identical to what our impact fee would be, whether we're going to call it a connection fee or we're going to call it an impact fee, whichever one we want to call it. We're already charging the same amount of money. It's $2,500 to hook to our water system today, and it's $8,000 to hook to our sewer system, is what our current fee structure is in place today. So that's whatever we're going to call it. We already have those fees. You guys happen to waive it, trying to encourage people to get onto the sewer system. So, and that gets updated every year with our fee schedule.
And what's the average cost for a new septic and well system in Putnam County?
Not sure. I mean, I think it varies by location. We got one at a county building we're building, was $10,000 last week, roughly.
For the well?
And the well, we just paid $15,000 for.
So you get $25,000 in water and sewer at that one facility?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So let me clarify something.
10,000.
Get it straight in my head, Mr. Grimes. If we get a grant and we've already run a pipe past your house and you haven't built, we're not gonna be able to charge you an impact fee or a hookup fee for that, for your water and sewer based on the grant that we got, correct?
You're saying if we ran the pipe past your house,
If it's already there right now,
already there and there's no house,
right, there's no house,
okay?
and we got a grant to run that line,
Uh-huh.
then we can't charge you a connection fee or a impact fee.
Correct, because essentially the grant is paying the impact into the plant. I mean, it's the free dollars that you got coming in. It's one way to look at it. I mean, like right now, I'm gonna use septic to sewer phase 4, right? That we have today. The backbone infrastructure, and that is $4.5 million roughly. And that's what our grant was. And they said, well, go ahead and get started in your backbone. You can apply for additional grants for hookups into the system, right? We just had to waive the hookups. I mean, that's part of the grant from the Water Management District or DEP, whoever's coming through these days, says you cannot charge these fees to the customer. So they have, at that point, they got a decision to make. They can hook to it when it's free, when it's coming by them, or if they choose not to, and when their septic, it's not if, it's when their septic fails, they'll have to pay the fee then. So the resident has a choice to make at the moment.
Those grant fees won't be available forever.
That's correct. So once we run through there with the grant program, whenever that grant hits today, for the amount of dollars it does, once that grant funds is gone, it's gone. And then if they decide 6 weeks from now that I should have signed up.
Okay, so again, you've got a vacant lot on a piece of property that Water Management gave us a grant to run that sewer pipe in front of your property. And you choose not to build for 2 years from now. You're gonna pay an impact fee or a hookup fee, regardless, only because we haven't once we close out the grant, it's closed. And now you gotta hook up and you gotta pay the full fee.
That's correct, because I mean, at that point, there was nothing there. There's no home to use the service. So, I mean, we wouldn't have, I mean, the tap might be in the main when we're hooking it in there. But we wouldn't use a credit for a vacant lot that has no use.
I get it. I think,
But
I
they
heard
won't allow them to
before-
put a septic in that same vacant lot. You'll have to hook into the sewer system by the DEP
I think
rule.
the key word here is what you just said. Once the grant's closed out, then that's it. You've had, even if I didn't want to build, I might want to go ahead and start building to avoid that, but I don't have to.
Right, so currently today at Public Works, we have a list, I think it's about 180, 190 people that says, when you do put it in front of my home, I want to hook in, right? So we would take those monies from the Water Management District and go as far as it could go. And then eventually you got to hit stop, right? So, I mean, or we can go out and ask for more funding. The Water Management says, apply for funding, right? You know, as we're in construction, apply for additional hookups. We could apply for additional hookups to completely maximize our wastewater plant. I think when these guys are talking about it's brand new construction, or, you know, when a grant is not in place, right? I mean, that's whenever you got to start looking at your impact fees to be able to buy into the upgrades of the plant. Like you mentioned, that first presentation was how much capacity we have left at the $8,000 per hookup into the plant is how much capacity we have left. We're just taking infrastructure and change for it.
With that example you gave, an empty lot with the sewer run out front, I mean, when you look at it, it's going to be less expensive for you to hook into that county system than it is for you to go put your own water and sewer in. So there are going to be people that are going to be chomping at the bit to get that. Now, there are going to be some people that are going to say, yeah, but my taxes are going to go up, but you don't have to replace that sewer ever again. You know, it's not all bad. It looks like big dollars.
Hey, real quick question. Do you have to have a building to hook up? Can you just go ahead and run your tap with the idea that I'm going to build here in 2 years? Just a thought.
What are they basing the capacity of the use
don't
on,
know.
right? I mean, we got to, I mean, because a permit goes by the amount of bedrooms. They had to design the system, whether it's a 1 horsepower pump or it's a 2 horsepower pump, or, you know, that it's based upon the design. So I don't think anybody, I mean, we're not going to go put a vacant lift station on a piece of property and just, you know, it's not like we're going to build it and they're going to come.
Hey, believe me, that's going to come up. You know that.
100% is going to come up, but I mean, why would we spend the dollars that is given to us by a grant authority to not remove a septic tank from the river, which is what our goal has been, was to remove them from the river and the creek for being environmentally friendly
Right.
to those. So there's nothing there.
So we did discuss some things regarding the incentives and businesses, but one of the things that got asked this morning was about an exemption or a waiver for an affordable housing. And we know that affordable housing is defined by Florida statute, but if you can just expand on that. It sounds like it would be similar to what you spoke about regarding you still have to pay, somebody has to pay that.
That's actually one exception the legislation made. The local governments are allowed to reduce or waive impact fees for qualified affordable workforce housing without having to backfill.
Okay.
So you can absolutely reduce it. It has a definition by the statute, again, like your average median income, what percentage, it can be up to 120%. And as long as that's tracked, and the way other jurisdictions design that, for example, they gave a bigger discount if there's a commitment of, say, 30 years. Maybe they waived it 100%. If the affordable housing commitment was only 10 years, they waived it 50%. And then, you know, after 10 years, it can
You're
be.
referring to if a developer comes in and they're
Yes.
building a multi-unit dwelling unit
Yes.
facility.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so they have to keep it at the affordable housing levels, and then after 10 years, I'm making up numbers here, but I mean, after 10 years, they can sell it at market value and they don't have to pay the differential. Or they get bigger discount and the commitment is longer. If they break that agreement, then they have to pay the fee.
Okay, but you're saying that if we were to do something like, we don't have to backfill that with
No.
another revenue
No.
source? That's the only exception.
Yes.
And you mentioned workforce housing. There's two different definitions, one for affordable and one for workforce, correct?
Actually, it's only one section of the statute they refer to in the Impact Fee Act, and it goes all the way to 120% of the average median income. I can get that to you, but it's usually at 120% is considered workforce at that point, so.
And is that for large builder projects? Is that for a single family dwelling?
It's single family or rental, any housing. It just has to be, if it's, the housing price has to be less than 30%, like the mortgage has to be less than 30% of their income. If it's rental, again, so it's a relation to their income.
So a modest tiny house.
Right,
No, it's their income. It's based on their income.
yes,
Yeah, I get it.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about addressing affordable housing. So I want to share with you, I should have made copies, I apologize, but there's an article from News4Jax regarding addressing affordability. How does Northeast Florida's housing market align with the definition of affordable housing? This was published on May 14th of 2025. Just to give my colleagues a little bit of information. So it talks about affordable is defined as spending no more than 30% of your income on housing. And this data was from the University of Florida's Schimberg Center for Housing Studies, and it shows the typical single-family home in Florida costs around $400,000, a 66% increase over the past 10 years, even after adjusting for inflation. So what the interesting part about this is, according to Northeast Florida Association of Realtors data from April of 2025, there are 3 most affordable counties in Northeast Florida, and Putnam County is number 1. Our average home price in Putnam County is $242,495 with an affordability index of 107.5. Previous month was 111.5. The next county over that's closest to us is Baker County, and their affordability index is 86, and their average home price is $305,000. And then you go up to Duval County, and their average home price is $320,000 with a 77% of affordability index. So even with impact fees, Putnam County still has, we are still really well situated for affordable housing compared to the others in the state. And then I pulled some data from the Palatka Housing Authority, and there are 442 units that Palatka Housing Authority manages for public housing, and they offer 402 vouchers, which gives them their choices, housing choice vouchers. And those are, they serve Crescent City, East Palatka, Interlaken, Palatka, Pomona Park, San Mateo, Satsuma, and Malacca. So just some information I wanted to share with you guys, because there is 844 affordable, or those are low cost to zero cost to residents units out of what we have. So I just wanted to talk about that if we're going to talk about affordable housing. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in saying all that, and I appreciate you sharing that with us, as the builder that came up this morning and said his average home was 300 and something, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it was something, what would be an affordable house? And that was the question that you asked me this morning. What would be an affordable home for workforce housing? Would it be 243,000? Or where do we set that limit at for Putnam County? Would it be 180,000?
The formula for that looks at average median income of this region and says they should not pay more than 30% of that amount for housing. And then, so basically then you're like solving, okay, if I have this much per month, this is the mortgage I can afford, this is the house price I can afford. So that kind of and if, again, as far as the legislation goes, it's looking at, if you are at 60% of median income, 80% of median income. So there's like income levels that are allowed to reduce this fee for, and then we are back solving what they can afford. And then that's the price of the house, but it just needs a calculation.
So Commissioner, for an 80% AMI area median income, the house would be around 293,000
For Putnam County.
for Putnam County.
And that's for workplace or affordable housing pricing?
It doesn't make the distinction. It's based on income and the ability. You have to have a 640 credit, or you have to have the ability to secure and get a mortgage.
Okay, and you're basing that on a $49,000 median income, somewhere in that area?
The current HUD rate for our county is a family income of 85.5.
So, close to the 49 individual.
And we do have programs in Putnam County for down payment assistance. I sit on AHAC, and we also have rehab, and a couple of those homes are actually being completely rebuilt. So the question then would come back to this board is, do we want to, as we move forward, or if we move forward, address some kind of reduction, or I don't know if the right word is waiver, is the right word waiver, for affordable housing?
Yeah, you can do either reduction or waiver without backfilling, yeah.
Okay, all right. So I know that was discussed earlier, I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, I appreciate that, and I do want to have that conversation. I want to keep our firefighters, our law enforcement, you know, but I can tell you our law enforcement, they don't make $85,000 a year. So they're going to have to be married, their wife's going to have to be working to make that work out. But I would like to see that. I would like to see us, and even with our other programs that we have, like our SHIP down payment assistance, we can help them get in. But you know, sometimes you can set people up for failure if they don't have the income to support that. So that's my point there. But I do like workforce housing, whatever that means. But it's going to be based on how much do I make and how much can I afford to put towards the home payment. But I do think we ought to look at our law enforcement, our firefighters, our nurses, you know, people that are essential service that we rely on, you know.
There are programs like Hometown Heroes, stuff like that. Go ahead.
Just so we're clear, it's not per person, it's per household, per family. So 85.5 is generally assumed to be a 2-income household.
All right, we went down a rabbit hole. I know some of that didn't necessarily have to do with your presentation. Are there any other questions for the presenter? It's a lot.
So basically, this is just your numerical recommendation of the impact for our community.
Yeah, we actually don't even call it a recommendation. We said these are the technically calculated cost of growth, the full cost. Recommendation can be, it's up to each jurisdiction is different. So your options are growth pays for itself, existing population subsidizes growth, or level of service degrades, or a combination. And
That's
can
what I
be
want. That's
any-
what I wanted you to say. I wanted people to understand that there could be the potential degradation of services, or your existing population pays for the growth, or the growth is financed by the growth.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any comments or questions from staff? All right. All right, thank you for your presentation. I don't think we have anything at the time. All right, board, what's your pleasure? Say that again? Oh, thank you. This is a public hearing meeting. Is there anybody who would like to speak regarding this public hearing item? Please come forward. Good afternoon, Mr. Woodward.
Good afternoon again. I'm taking you up on your offer for a second bite at the apple.
You're allowed to.
today.
We want participation.
Shall I introduce myself again, or do you remember me?
I think we're good. You're on the record.
Okay, thank you. This has been a wonderful discussion. I've enjoyed listening to it. At times, it kind of veered toward the old saying they used to have in Tallahassee, don't tax you, don't tax me, tax that man behind the tree. We can all think of folks or businesses that we want to support and encourage, and but I think Commissioner Alexander hit it on the head just a few moments ago, that if we take the calculations that your consultants came up with that represent the actual cost of the growth, and we discount those, whatever amount we discount it, we're putting it back on the backs of the taxpayers, the existing tax base of the county. So somebody, we'll be the ones behind the tree. Because the consultant's numbers show the net impact of development, including commercial development. I don't know if you remember or not, but one of the slides that we were shown showed that the calculation of the amount of impact to be attributed to commercial development was already giving credit for the revenue that the commercial development would be expected to pay in other forms. So they're already given that credit back. Yes, it's true, over time, commercial development will more than pay for itself. No question about that. But, and maybe we could look at that slide again, because I think it's very important. Your consultants were already factoring in that credit with the number they came up with. So that reduction that you may be thinking about providing to commercial development because of the future projected revenue may already have been done. So maybe we can get that clarified. Most businesses that build new buildings in which to operate expect to pay impact fees these days. That's the world we're in, and they're not afraid of them. So there may be plenty of good policy reasons for giving this one or that one a break, particularly when we're looking at affordable housing or something like that. But let's just keep in mind that somebody behind that tree is going to be paying for the cost of the growth.
Yes, sir, thank you. All right, is there any other public comment?
Were you waiting on Laura to jump up in front of you, Benji?
No, I got it. Well, I guess in theory, I was probably overly vague this morning. We truly understand that impact fees cannot be discounted in waves, and they would need to be applied proportionately for using those infrastructures. Really what the Chamber's recommendation, I think what a lot of this leads to, we've kind of talked to staff about, is really the creation for a county incentive program. To really define these, to have this defined, what are the incentives, what tool do you have? And yes, impact fees can be a tool in an incentive program. And really our thought was we don't want to box ourselves out of there. Ultimately, I think we need that incentive program. And again, you guys get to define that. It's based upon our target industries. What does this community want? What are we willing to do to get it? And have that formalized incentive program for that. And yes, impact fees could be a tool and part of that incentive program based upon that. So that's really, I was just, kind of being vague about it. But no, I think businesses do, but I think we also, part of that exercise is to look at what our surrounding counties are doing. What are those target industries we want to go after? What might they be offered by our competitors? And are we willing to have something that allows us to compete for those businesses? And again, when you look around Putnam County, largely when you look at expansion, it's been existing businesses. We haven't had a lot of new large investment from outside sources. And that is something that we're looking to bring more of that into the community, because again, new tax dollars, new growth, impact fees, ad valorem taxes, jobs, that's what helps grow a strong tax base. That's what helps you guys be in the position in the future to help lower those. Because if we don't have the impact fees, if we don't have the new business coming in to invest in our community and provide that, we need to grow the tax base. We need to grow the taxable value. So we do understand that, yes, you can't discount them, that the money would have to be funded from the general fund, another legally appropriate source. We just want to see that the county remain competitive when a project offers, when we have that extraordinary long-term value. We want to be in a position to win that new business, to bring that competitor or that new company to this county. Thank you.
Commissioner Harvey.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bates, but I guess my question to you is, what is that number? And I think that's what we've got to look at. What is the number? What business are you looking for? And what number do you want us to put up? And
Well, I think that would be
think
based
that's the-
upon I mean, the county's long-term strategic plan and then the targeted industries.
Well, I mean, we've been very minimal at getting new businesses coming to town. But we've done really well keeping the businesses with the incentives that we gave. But they're based on a case-by-case basis. And previous boards have took a lot of heat over giving those incentives, saying you don't really need to do that, they're not going anywhere. Well, we didn't want to take that chance. So I guess my question is it us putting 100,000 a year? Is it us putting 200,000 a year up? Is it us partnering with the Development Authority? Is it us partnering with Elevate Putnam? What is the number? And I think that's where the chamber is going to have to come up and say, this is the business we're looking for, and this is the number we're looking for. And maybe there's a partnership, and I do agree it's two separate issues. It's not one connected to the other. It's two separate issues. But what is that sweet spot we're looking at? What do we need to do for that incentive program? That's what this commissioner wants to know.
Yes, sir.
And I would say, add to that, you said, what are our surrounding counties doing? So I would ask the chamber to find out for us and let us know. If we're gonna sit down and have a conversation about an incentive program, then if we can, I mean, I don't know if it's readily available, but if it is, can we figure what the other counties are doing?
Yes.
So I think that if we're gonna have the conversation, we have to have all of the information. And and I know you're trying to figure out all the tools that we could use, and I appreciate that, but I do still feel like it's two separate things.
Well, Benji, my crystal ball is still broken, but a lot of us can see what's on the horizon. So it'd be a very exciting time to be the leader of business development in Putnam County. If there are any businesses that are on the fringe of coming in and they needed that little swift kick to say, hey, if we do it now, we might save a little bit of money or a large amount of money even. So it could be a great tool to go ahead and push them over the edge and bring them on in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I do have one other question. I believe I know the answer to this, but if you'll come up, I just got one question. I know Mr. Minor had spoke earlier, and I just want to clarify this for the public. Our children and our locals that live here, if they're building on property, on family property, and not causing an impact to water and sewer, only an impact to fire protection or other services, they would still have to pay all of the impact fees, right? If they're building another structure on the same property?
Yes, impact fees are attached to the structures, and it's a one-time payment for the life of the home or the structure. So there'll be different families, different people will live in there, so it's one time. So it is attached to the structure, and that's kind of how it's measured. So yes, any new structure would pay the impact fee.
That's a dwelling unit.
That's a dwelling unit, or if it's commercial, per 1,000 square foot, yeah.
Right, okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted that clear as mud, right? All right, back to the board.
Madam Chair, you're looking for an adoption of the next meeting for the impact fee, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I will make a motion that, just because I need a little time, but the next meeting would be June 10th at 9 a.m.
I think we want to do a 5:05 meeting, is that correct? If somebody could help with that?
Do we need a 5:05? Okay, June 10th at 5:05. I'm good with that.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to read the second ordinance for impact fees on June 10th at 5:05.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a second. Is there any discussion? All right, I just want to say that, these things are hard. These are hard discussions. When you're making change in the community, these aren't easy conversations. But I can assure you that the vote we take on this impact fee affects the next vote that you're going to be making on your local taxes. Every vote is connected to something else and has a direct impact to our community. And I've always, I wish we could say, hey, I don't want my kids to have to pay the impact fee. I don't want your kids to pay an impact fee, but it doesn't work that way. That's not a choice that we get to make as a board.
No.
But I do think that growth needs to pay for growth, and we are starting to see growth. And the argument that we wouldn't get new houses or new industry is just not true, because we're the only county in all of Northeast Florida that doesn't charge it. So the city of Palatka said at one of their meetings they have 800 permits open right now. Their impact fees have not slowed down the city of Palatka.
No, and it's not as though we're not subjecting ourselves to the same thing, because it is my intent to build a new home within the next 2 years. So I'm not just handing this off to the community. I'll be subject to it myself, so.
Well, with that being said, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign. All right, motion carries. So, is there anybody who wants to make comment from the county commissions?
Madam Chair, if you don't
Yes.
mind, I do. I was an honor this week to, maybe it's the older I get, maybe it's the more, like Mr. Howard Griffin said, there's less sand in the top of the hourglass than there is in the bottom. But putting flags on the veteran graves this week was just probably some of my highlights of my career. Done the wreaths, I've done flags before, but this year it really meant something to me. And even yesterday, welcoming people to the Memorial Day presentation at the American Legion out in Interlaken, where I brought greetings from every one of y'all, and Commissioner Sear was there. But everybody can't be everywhere, and we know that. But I think it's the older I get, I'm more appreciative of the fact for the men and women who didn't get to celebrate Memorial Day. They went out and they defended our country, and they planted trees that they never sat under. And here we are able to do that and live in that freedom. So it just really struck home with me this year more and more. And I'm so honored that this community steps up and looks at these graves of the veterans who gave it all for our country and for our lives and for our freedom. And it was just powerful to see that on Facebook, and all the pictures and all the involvement from all of y'all really touched me this week, and it moved me more than I've ever been moved. So I just want to say that. I did say yesterday that I was never going to say Happy Memorial Day again, because it's not a happy day, it's a solemn day, and it's a day that we should reflect. And the Bible says we need to build memorials to pass that down to our next generation of what God did. But this is a memorial for what people did, that we can benefit and we can live in a free country. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments?
Just one final little touch on the next month's discussion. I would like to see a little more information on a tiered approach to the residential. I think it's worth looking at. I realize this is just a one-time fee, and you know these folks pay ad valorem for ages and ages. But I mean, there is a reason most other counties are doing this. It seems to make sense. Some of our others are by square footage.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want, I saw some of those other comparisons looked pretty detailed and complicated and cumbersome. I think we can come up with something that's not terribly cumbersome.
Yeah.
Anyway, just a thought. I'd like to see a little more information. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think there was a slide in there that showed that a little bit. It's just a matter of what we choose to adopt.
Right.
Commissioner Alexander, do you have anything? No, ma'am. All right. All right, I don't either. With that, this meeting is adjourned.